Okay, good evening everybody. Okay, today will be the last section of chapter 8 whereby we'll deal with the applications of heat transfer. Okay, before we move on, one thing I like to highlight to get everybody on the same foot or same benchmark as everybody as me. Okay, in dealing with application of heat transfer, one of the common mistakes that students always make is that we assume that the answers or the applications actually require only one form of one mode or one form of heat transfer. But that's why this mentality is actually one of the key mistakes that the students make in the applications, in daily applications. Some or most of the application that we are dealing with actually involves two or more modes of heat transfer. And sometimes among all these modes of heat transfer, there is actually one primary source of heat transfer. But for some application, there is actually more than one main mode of heat transfer. For example, it could be easily as that the particular application actually deal with or actually employs convection and radiation as their main mode of heat transfer rather than just one mode. Okay, so this is one of the common things that I like to say straight with students. Whenever we deal with application, is almost important to actually analyze the question first before we go in with a preconceptual assumption that there is only one mode. So to do that, I actually have tabulated a certain clues pertaining to different modes. Okay, for example, that when you're talking about heat transfer through the use of conduction, generally the question will actually highlight, or it will actually touch base with the type of material being used. Okay, be it metal, non-metal, okay, conductor or non-conductor, the question will touch base with the type of metal. And for example, the question may have actually mentioned car, plastic blocks. Okay, why you mentioned plastic? Plastic is the material. Okay, for example, car. Okay, when the question just highlight car or just mention car in general, okay, of different model car, there's different mode and different models, different sizes. But one thing that is common between all cars is that the cars actually deal with a lot of metal surfaces. So in fact, when I talk about car, plastic blocks, I'm actually highlighting the fact to the students to take note of the material itself, be it metal or plastic or non-plastic. And one of the common clues that I like to highlight to students is when we're dealing with conductors, one of the main item that we like to use is actually air pockets. Okay, air pockets, we all know, is a bad conductor or is a good insulator. Okay, so the presence of air conductor is actually a clue to tell students that actually conduction is being employed or is being deterred for this question. For example, when I talk about sweater of different colors, different nature, different design. So color, design, sizes, all this is actually, we cannot infer just from the word sweater. But one thing common that with the clue given by saying sweater, one of the common clue, the definite clue that we can infer is that in the midst of the sweater lining or this thing, there will be presence of air pockets. And air pockets presence will actually tell us that the air pockets are actually being employed as an insulator. So between air pocket can actually help students to infer that the mode of transfer we are dealing with is actually conductions, and the culprit that is actually responsible for it is actually air pockets. Okay, these are what we mean by clues to it. If we're dealing with convection, one of the clues or one of the terms that we are dealing with is actually the presence of fluid, whether liquid or gas. Okay, so be it air, water, cold water, hot water, the fact that the question actually mentions fluids, okay, gas and liquid, this is one clue that actually convection current might be the key source of answer. As for radiation, usually the question will actually give hints or will actually use terminologies that actually points back to the four factors: color, texture, surface area, and lastly the temperature of the object itself. For example, the question will deal with shiny black car. Okay, why does the question state shiny black car rather than just a car? Okay, the fact that is, or the reason behind is actually shiny, it deals with the color itself. Shiny deal with the texture itself. Black deal with the color itself. So the examiner is actually trying to tell the students to actually take note of the factors involved. Okay, for example, I can actually compare big plastic block versus small plastic block. Since both blocks are made of plastic, they are of the same material. So which means conduction is actually not the main issue here, because they are both of the same material. But rather than the big and small, the sizes or the surface area in question is actually what is of concern. So the marker is actually trying to tell the students that, hey, take a look, the size is important. Please take notes. Okay, so these are what I mean by various clues that the examiners, they actually planted in the question for students to actually sift it out, to guide the students towards the correct answer, rather than just depending on the students' common knowledge or even general knowledge, all these things to answer the question, which is, in my own opinion, is actually quite unfair. So that's why I believe the examiners or all examiners actually planted certain clues for the students to actually pick up. So students, please look at the clues, okay, before you go on to the questions, okay? So now let's look at several examples. Okay, so now we have what we call a steamer, or sometimes we have a double gaze window. Okay, steamer, usually when we talk about steamer, things to look out for, it could be the material itself. Okay, it could be a plastic steamer or it's a clear pot steamer. Okay, and sometimes take note for the picture I'm looking at. If I'm looking at the material, yes, I'm looking at, okay, material which it could be dealing with conductions. Okay, but if I'm looking at a steamer, okay, just by looking at the picture, you take a look, there is a lid at the side. The lid is meant to be like placed on top of the steamer. And what is the purpose of the lid? Actually to prevent the air or hot air from escaping. So the lid itself could be a clue, okay, that is dealing with air, primarily hot air. And we're looking at hot air, all these things, one of the main things that one of the shout out that you must have is, it could be the question is dealing with convection. So convection could be the question, or it should be one of the consideration for students also. Okay, so likewise there could be other clues. For example, the material, it can be easily as the color of the steamer itself. So whether it's a white steamer, or why is it painted white, why is it painted shiny, or this thing, the color could be the texture. So it depends on the question itself. Okay, this is what we mean by decipher or infer from the question itself. As for double gaze window, if you look at the picture given, you'll find that surprisingly the question actually highlighted two glass layers. Okay, two glass layers, and actually in between the glass there is the presence of air. Okay, the moment you see air, you'll find that, like I mentioned before, air, we are pertaining with a bad conductors, and we are relating it to conductions, because air is being a bad conductor or is a good insulator. So the moment we talk about air, the common knowledge that the kids must have as a science students is that air is a bad conductor, and the students, second clue to the student is the question actually highlighted glass layer. Okay, and as most science students, you should know glass is actually a bad conductor. Okay, it's not glass. When we talk about glass, we are talking about the conductor. Okay, because remember, glass itself, okay, based on the question itself, it doesn't indicate whether it's a shiny surface glass or it's a tinted glass. It's just glass. So the most basic assumption that we are looking at for glass is actually just a transparent glass with no colors. So if colors is not involved, the things that we are looking out for when the marker identified glass, one of the most logical one that the marker wants the students to infer is actually the material itself. And with material, we actually can infer that the questions that, or the answers that could be relating to glass could be conductions. Okay, so when we look at double gaze window, okay, double gaze window is actually to reduce heat loss or heat gain, or the heat conducted out or conducted into the building at different different season. Okay, so for example, if we are in winter, okay, if it's winter, the outside temperature is higher. Outside temperature is lower than the interior temperature. So at this instant in time, whereby outside temperature is lower than the interior, your heat will actually be lost to the surrounding, actually be conducted out to the surrounding. So how do we reduce it? By the presence of using double gaze window. The air, being a bad conductor, will reduce the heat loss being conducted out to the environment. Okay, take note the phrasing, the keywords, the sentences that we need to deal with when we look at conductions. Okay, I have mentioned it before in my first video, 8.1, 8.2, the keywords used or the key sentence used in conductions. Okay, please refer to it. Okay, as I will not be referring much to it because the main focus of this video is actually to bring everybody through the clues so that we can actually decide on what mode of heat transfer we are looking at. Okay, for example, if we have refrigerators, okay, where we have cold air and hot air. Okay, so for refrigerator, most of us will know is for cold air. So the cold air being in the question here will actually tell us that the questions will actually want the answer to be pegged to where? To the main mode of heat transfer, which is convection, because we are talking about air itself, hot air and cold air. So from here you will know that the question should be actually crafted, or the answer should be working towards convection. Cold air sink, hot air rise. Okay, keyword, same thing, I mentioned it before in 8.3, convection currents. Please refer to the necessary keywords. Okay, same thing. The main emphasis here is to actually highlight to you is that the fact that we are using air, it is one of the important clues to tell students that the question is about convection current. Okay, now how about simple thing like ice cream? Okay, most of the time ice cream comes in different flavor, different colors, different even like different ingredients. But one thing common about all ice cream is that it's cold. Okay, and because it's cold, we will know that the air around the ice cream is actually cold. Okay, so we are pertaining to where? Air. Okay, cold, and we have air. Okay, so if these two combine, you'll find that the questions actually is talking about the air rather than the ice cream itself, because it's really hard to know what material or what ingredients the ice cream is talking about. So it's not possible to talk about conductions. Okay, heat conducted to the ice cream. It's unlikely that we are talking about radiation, because ice cream, there's no color involved. Okay, it's hard for us to decipher what color we are looking at. So the most logical assumption that we talk about ice cream is that ice cream is cold, and the air around it will be cold. And we talk about cold air, one of the logical possible answers that we will be using in the mode of heat transfer that we will be using, it should be convection current. Okay, so in fact, we are looking at the question just by analyzing the type of pictures or the characters that is given to us. We are actually able to narrow down on the possible modes of heat transfer. Okay, by looking at the clues given to us. Okay, so please refer to the second slides in this video for the clues that I have listed out. It is not comprehensive, but is up to the best of my knowledge. Okay, if I miss out anything, just let me know. Okay. Here we have a classic example of heat exchanger. Okay, here take note the certain clues that the question actually give us is copper pipe. Okay. Thereafter we have hot water, cold water or cooled water. Okay, of course the direction of water is important also. So we look at certain clues that is given to us. So in this case, we look at different type of materials that we are looking at. So these are the things that we really need to pay attention is. Okay, for now, okay, for those who are in this who are with us until now, this is the question whereby you actually I will stop here, and it's time for you to actually try, okay, to decipher from the keywords that I have circled what are the main modes of heat transfer that the question is actually referring to. Okay.